Now from WATN, it's Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
It's time to get the real story behind the big stories. Welcome to Local 24 This Week, where every Sunday at 9 a.m. and 10:35 p.m., we take a closer look at the people and issues making news during the past week. I'm your host, Otis Sanford, and today for Richard Ransom. Thanks for joining us. And here are our topics for this week. Stalemate on MATA. The Shelby County Commission can't seem to find a way to provide funding for the Memphis Area Transit Authority that most commissioners can live with. So, the issue has now been kicked to an ad hoc committee, which has 30 days to study what to do next. But then, what happens after that? Next, electricity rates. The Memphis City Council finally gave approval to MLGW's request to increase electricity rates by 7.2%. And utility officials are saying customers will actually benefit from the increase in the long run. We'll see if that's true. Plus, we'll delve into Tennessee Governor Bill Lee's plan to reintroduce a fetal heartbeat bill in the legislature that will effectively ban abortions. While in Mississippi, Governor Tate Reeves is speaking out about the numerous deaths occurring at state prisons. I'll get into all of that with my panel, but first let's go one-on-one with Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris. Mayor, welcome to the program. Glad
Thanks
to have
a lot.
you.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome back. You've been here quite a while.
Thanks.
You've been here plenty of times. We have a lot to cover, so let's delve right into it. And let's start with what I mentioned in the lead-in, and that's MATA. It just seems to me that the Shelby County Commission cannot come up with an agreement that all of them can live with to fund MATA. Now it's been kicked to an ad hoc committee. Why is it so difficult? What do you think the sticking points are, and where do you think this is going to go after it comes out of that committee?
So transit and MATA have always been difficult. I think people have been fighting and working on this issue for my entire time in public office. So for at least the last 10 years or so, it has always been very difficult. And what we're trying to do is even more difficult because we're trying to get the county to invest in MATA, something that has never happened before. And then you add the third layer of difficulty is that we're trying to get a supermajority of county commissioners on a partisan body agree to an investment in MATA. So our big pursuit is to get 9 votes. We have some momentum, even though, like you say, it's been punted to committee. There is a lot of signs that there's a lot of momentum, but at the end of the day, we're going to get to 9 votes, and I believe that is slowly becoming clarified how we get to 9 votes. But real quick, we've got now 5 co-sponsors of the current compromise plan. We have 7 co-sponsors of a related plan to put an additional $1 million in MATA. So all told, we are gradually building the kind of coalition you need on the county commission to invest in transit, help people get to school, get the jobs and to get to school, and to help preserve our shared environment and reduce traffic congestion.
But were you not surprised when the local Republican Party showed up at the meeting last week and said that they were opposed to a tax increase? Did that throw you for a loop, or were you that was not a surprise for you?
I am wary of putting partisan politics in between government and its ability to help people get access to a job. And so I wish that that had not happened, because the people that ride the bus are people that are trying to get to a place so that they can work a shift and get back home so they can spend time with their family. That kind of activity transcends party politics. So I was, I don't like to see that. I'm a local government official, and I try to call it like I see it. I may run as a Democrat, but my goal is to represent everyday citizens and to deliver action on behalf of everyday citizens.
Okay. We have a lot of other topics to get to. MATA is a big deal, but we have some other things to talk about. Let's talk about another thing that you have proposed, a parental leave policy. Can you, in a brief way, talk about what that policy is all about and why you're doing that?
So we are proposing very soon here, we expect to propose paid parental leave for Shelby County employees. It's been a long time coming, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to put this proposal in front of the County Commission in the next several weeks. We'll propose, we hope, 6 weeks of paid parental leave for a new birth or a new adoption. The #1 priority of our administration is to make sure that we lift up families, and we enable our women that have had a birth a chance to have a recovery without financial worries, that our moms and dads that welcome a new family member to their homes have a chance to bond with that new family member. So we're working hard to put that proposal in front of the County Commission. It follows the effort of Donald Trump, a Republican, who has also led on this issue. It follows an effort by Governor Lee, a Republican, who's led on that issue. So some of these issues are not partisan. There's just issues that hopefully bring people together and get something done that's long overdue.
And I assume that one will have probably an easier ride in the County Commission than the matter will.
You've been around local government long enough to know.
Yeah.
It ain't no easy ride.
Never know. I got you.
It ain't nothing easy.
Let's move on down the list here. You've also, last year, you had a big press availability to sign the refugee resettlement letter that you sent to the State Department. Why did you make that such a public deal? And tell me a little bit about your thinking there.
Because refugees are folks that flee their countries because their lives are being threatened or are in jeopardy. It is an arduous trick to get here to the United States, and we have the capacity in many cases to welcome them and to provide safe haven. There are lives at stake. We have always been that kind of shining place of hope around the world, and I want to make sure we preserve that. And that's us living our best version of ourselves, is to help people who are in need. I get that a lot of people say, what about me? I didn't run for office so that I could be the loudest voice of what about meism. I ran for office because there are people that are voiceless, there are everyday citizens, there are people that need help, and I was in a position to try to help them. The same perspective drove my decision to say we should be open to welcome refugees. That's what America is based on, that's our heritage, and that's the best of us.
Well, Governor Lee, you mentioned him earlier, he also proposing to that Tennessee remain a refugee resettlement state. Another thing that you and the Republican agree on. But he has gotten plenty of pushback. Have you gotten any pushback locally?
I am a local government official. I get pushback every single day on every single thing.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Let's talk a little bit about presidential politics for a second. Last fall, you endorsed Joe Biden for president. I assume that endorsement is still out there. What do you plan to do, if anything, in ways of campaigning for him? We have the Tennessee primary coming up in March. Do you plan to do any campaigning, and what was your thinking behind that endorsement?
No, I plan to campaign aggressively for Joe Biden because I believe he's the best candidate in the Democratic field. I, number one, am always looking for a candidate that can bring people together. That's the most important criteria for me. And Joe Biden is someone that can speak to various audiences and bring people together. That is a huge contrast from what we see coming out of Washington right now, where it seems that the major tactic is disunity and kind of, discord and driving people into their respective corners. Joe Biden has a lot of experience and offers us a path to stability in Washington. That's complete opposite of what we have right now in Washington. And by the way, Joe Biden, to me, is the best person in a position to beat Donald Trump. That's very important right now. I just see chaos emanating from Washington. That spills down to the local and state level. Right now, we have a lot of people talking about immigration in negative ways, talking about immigrants in negative ways, and a lot of different groups in negative ways, and part of the reason why that has become okay is because of what's happening in Washington.
We have about 30 seconds left. A quick follow-up on that. A lot of other local and well-known local elected officials, Van Turner, for example, is supporting Michael Bloomberg. Do you worry that there's a mixed message here with pretty well-known local elected officials among the Democrats, and the voters won't really know what to do?
I think the voters will get it right. They always get it right. So no matter what Commissioner Turner does or what yours truly does, the voters are going to get it right. And by the way, I like the field. I was a Bernie Sanders delegate in 2016. Okay. I'm a fan of Bernie Sanders and a fan of a lot of folks who are in the field right now. But Joe Biden is the best candidate in my view.
I got you. Well, we thank you for taking the time to come see us today. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks. That was County Mayor Lee Harris. We'll take a break and we'll have our panel discussing some other issues in just a moment.
I'm attorney Mike Montesi. I get injured people all the money they deserve.
Call 526-2126. What can we do to make an impact in our community? We can share our knowledge, be leaders, or simply participate in the 2020 census. The census wants our community to be counted accurately. That count informs decisions that affect funding for hundreds of programs, like Medicare, daycare, and arts education. When the community comes together, anything is possible.
Shape your future. Start here. Learn more at 2020census.gov.
If you or a loved one has mesothelioma or any other asbestos-related cancer, call now. Asbestos manufacturers sold deadly asbestos materials to thousands of companies, putting workers at risk. An estimated $30 billion in court-ordered trusts have been set aside to pay out claims to asbestos victims. You may be entitled to a portion of these funds and receive compensation without filing a lawsuit or ever going to court.
For your free legal consultation, call 1-800-568-5308. That's 1-800-568-5308. I'm a non-attorney spokesperson.
Jessica, we need to leave right now.
I need to get something.
There's a meaning no one knows. Wait until we set free.
So what's the empty suitcase for?
The grand prize trophy. Confidence. Pass it on.
I was born to be somebody.
Everyone has a story.
You can overcome.
Stories that matter and are important to you.
Voice to the voiceless.
Stories of grief, triumph, tragedy, and hope. Local 24 News is committed to telling your story, keeping you informed, keeping you safe. Local 24 News with Richard Ransom and Katina Rankin, telling your story. You're watching Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
Welcome back to Local 24 This Week. I'm Otis Sanford in today for Richard Ransom. And now let me introduce our panel. Mike Matthews, Local 24 reporter, and also Sam Hardiman from the Commercial Appeal. Thank you both for coming. Mike, I want to go to you first and follow up on some of the discussion I had with County Mayor Lee Harris about MATA and the funding for MATA over in the county. You've been covering that story quite heavily over the last several weeks. Why do you think that there's such a stalemate there with the county commissioners that they can't come to an agreement on how to fund Memphis Area Transit Authority?
You still have some members of that county commission who don't want to give them a dime, who are saying that basically in their areas, let's say Millington, for example, there is no service up there. So why should taxpayers in Millington pay the price? Now, Mayor Harris has gone on saying, think beyond your cities, think beyond your districts, think for the good of the county, and consider that. He needs 9 votes.
Right.
Now, he might get them, but there are some people on that commission right now who are not going to vote for it because they just don't feel it serves their people.
Well, as a quick follow-up here, I asked him, was he surprised to see the Shelby County Republican Party leadership come to the meeting and say with no uncertain terms, we are opposed to any tax increase here. That kind of threw the mayor for a loop because now this is a partisan issue when he was hoping for it to be bipartisan.
The big mistake they've made is calling it, or even thinking of lumping it into the wheel tax, because as you know, there's probably no more hated tax in Shelby County than the wheel tax. No more misunderstood tax either than the wheel tax, because the money from the wheel tax does still go to education. This would have to go, you'd have to have a separate fee. Same thing as a tax, but you have to have a separate fee and with the money going for transportation here. But it still gets lumped into that wheel tax, and nobody wants to see that thing get any more steam.
Okay, all right. Sam, I want to come to you and go across the plaza to City Hall, where the City Council finally gave approval to the electricity rate increase that MLGW has been pushing for quite a while. Can you talk a little bit about, first of all, what changed their minds on this, and go over the little bit of the details there of what the increase entails?
Sure. I mean, first, let's acknowledge finally is the right word there. Right. They've been pushing that for years. So what happened on Tuesday was an electric rate increase. Water and gas had already been hiked in late December. And so it'll be about $8.98 on the average residential bill over 3 years. It's going to go up as usage goes up, so those that use the least electricity are going to probably pay the least electricity. What changed minds, I think, was an amendment offered by J.B. Smiley that I think he worked in concert with a couple other members of City Council to ensure that MLG&W follows through on its cost-cutting measures. For a long time, a significant portion of Memphis City Council has wanted to look at the expense side of MLG&W's balance sheet and said, cut, 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 and find some more cuts. MLG&W has done that. They're going to have to come back to the Memphis City Council again about 5 times over the next 5 months to present how they are eliminating expenses on that balance sheet.
Okay. And Mike, let me ask you about that as well, because J.T. Young came out right after the increase was approved and said the taxpayer, I mean the rate payers, the customers are really going to be benefited by this in the long run. Is that?
It's hard to say right now. Yeah, that's a stretch a little bit when you have people who can't afford to pay it now, and quite a few people can't afford to pay their MLG&W bill now. It's going to be real hard to say, but you're going to benefit by being in even a bigger struggle in the next over 3 years or so. Right. But this thing got the conversation going again toward what are you going to do with TVA? Yeah. And that's the big issue right now.
Well, and speaking of that, Sam, has there been any movement in the last few weeks about the TVA-MLG&W marriage? Is there seriously some discussion about that separation?
Sure, absolutely. So if you didn't read the commercial appeal this week, shameless plug again, I published a story that detailed the first piece of the Integrated Resource Plan, which is this official plan that is to analyze how Memphis should or shouldn't leave TVA. And what that plan showed is if Memphis builds a lot of solar panels, if it builds several natural gas plants, which are going to cost billions of dollars altogether, there are potentially annual savings to leave TVA. This is not set in stone, but it is beginning to really percolate, and it's really being discussed at City Council. And all eyes are on that report, that IRP process. There has been quite an effort to somewhat go around that IRP process. Some people on council, particularly Councilman Jeff Warren, have pushed, let's just issue a request for proposals, bids, to several providers now and see what we get. MLG&W, President J.T. Young, is a measure twice, cut once kind of guy. Yeah. He likes to move very slowly. He has used the gambling analogy to talk about the potential savings for MLG&W leaving TVA. You are betting on the come if you don't actually make sure those savings exist.
Okay. And also at the City Hall this week, City Councilman Martavius Jones tried to bring back up the residency issue that I thought had been decided by the previous council at the end of last year. I don't think the police director was all too happy about that.
No, it wasn't.
What's going on there, Mike?
No, I mean, it had been decided last year by the old council. Martavius Jones has been a big get rid of the residency requirements. He feels they should be strengthened. His claim is that you're losing tax money. Right. That's kind of a stretch according to an awful lot of folks, but that's his claim. Okay. So that's why he says you got to have him living in the city. That's the thing that bothers me is this whole thing, you know, last year they said, okay, let's send it to the voters. Right. Let's send it to the voters and let them decide, as they have done before. Right. In this situation, if Martavius Jones succeeds, it'll be yanked off the ballot.
Right, right. You know? Sam, let me get you in on this because you covered that. We have about 30 seconds left on that.
So, I mean, first we have to keep in mind that Martavius Jones is going to probably come back with an ordinance, rescinding an ordinance. Right. Okay, so in government vernacular, that's going to take 3 meetings to get passed. It's unclear, you know, the people I talked to about this, is there support for that? Right. I think a faction of the new council supports getting rid of the residency requirement. A faction of the council that may or may not be in support of getting rid of it don't mind the voters deciding, as they have, as Mike pointed out, in the past.
Okay. All right. Thank you, folks. All right, we'll take another break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what's going on in state governments, both in Tennessee and Mississippi. You're watching Local 24 this week.
Embarrassed to smile? Cover your mouth in public? Afraid to go out to eat? You don't have to live that way. Dental implants can help. Call today or visit our website for your free dental consultation.
When you call me, we're in this together. We're partners fighting for the same goal. Maximum money for you.
It's easy with Montesi. My beautiful little car was totaled by a texting driver on Soda Road. I had to have surgery for a broken collarbone. This wreck was devastating to me. I needed the greatest lawyer in the world. It's easy with Montesi. I was so lucky to find attorney Mike Montesi. Montesi was like a lifesaver. I owe it all to Mike Montesi. Call 526-2126.
Introducing the Collector's Edition 2020 Battle for the White House chess set. Democrats stand face-to-face against Republicans, featuring President Trump and Vice President Pence, legislative leaders Pelosi, McConnell, Schumer, and McCarthy, plus members of our Supreme Court, and even former presidential teams. Each piece designed with impeccable detail to look just like our political leaders. A keepsake you'll cherish for generations. Order your limited edition 2020 Battle for the White House chess set with certificate of authenticity for only $39.99. For a limited time, you can get a second chess set. Just pay a separate fee. Because the Democratic nominees are not yet known, you'll receive 2 podiums to play now. Once the candidate is selected, you will be notified to acquire the final pieces to complete your set. Don't wait. Order now.
Call 1-800-208-2313. That's 1-800-208-2313. Or visit chess2020.com now.
Embarrassed to smile? Cover your mouth in public? Afraid to go out to eat? You don't have to live that way. Dental implants can help. Call today or visit our website for your free dental consultation.
You're watching Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
And welcome back for our last segment here. Let's talk about things that are going on in state government. In Tennessee, Governor Bill Lee had a big press conference this week surrounded by a whole group of Republican lawmakers in which he announced that he's going to go full speed ahead with a bill that would pretty much ban abortions, because it's a fetal heartbeat bill that would outlaw an abortion after a fetal heartbeat is detected, and the thinking is that's around 6 weeks. That's when most people find out about the fact that they may be pregnant. This is a major development, because it's going to turn Tennessee into one of those. Tennessee is going to lead the nation in if this passes in fatal heartbeat bill legislation. Craig Fitzhugh, who ran for governor, put out a tweet, and I'll read that to get the conversation started here. Of course, Craig Fitzhugh is a Democrat. He said, "Is it appropriate for a governor to make a clearly unconstitutional bill the centerpiece of his legislative agenda just to appease a group that's upset with him? Just asking for a friend." Sam, I'm going to come to you. First of all, this is going to be a very controversial piece of legislation, but is Fitzhugh sort of on the money with this?
I mean, to be clear, I don't have any sourcing or reporting on this. That seems like quite the subtweet, as the kids say these days. Mm-hmm. You know, I read a good story in the Tennessean, also a Gannett paper this morning by Joel Ebert, which was an analysis piece, you know, essentially saying what former Representative Fitzhugh said, which is after Governor Lee announced his support for Tennessee accepting refugees, that caused all sorts of stir in the Republican caucus. And now he is maybe perhaps throwing political red meat to his base, saying, let's get behind a fetal heartbeat bill.
Right. So, Mike, what do you make of
these? Are the people who voted for Bill Lee. You know, you have an awful lot of people who go to the polls with one issue and one issue only, and that's abortion.
Yeah.
Every political office across the gamut, from A to Z, they try to find out where that candidate stands on abortion. That's all they vote for. And in this situation, the governor has those, obviously, who are against abortion. So here you are with a governor who says at one point, okay, let's bring in, you know, these people coming into this country. Let's also make sure we let those people on death row die, but then let's stop at killing these unborns on the street. It's all over the place. All of it's, you know, like you say, is sensational in one form or another. And it all boils down to this. If this gets too far, the courts are going to have to handle it, like we've been talking about with abortion for a long time.
Absolutely. I don't think there's any question that abortion rights groups are going to take this to court. I think it probably will pass just because we have a supermajority Republican legislature. And if Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally is on board with it now, which he was, you know, he did not bring it up last year, it's going to pass. I don't see how it would not, especially especially with Governor Lee behind it. But it's going to go to court. There's no question about that. There was one other quick situation in the Tennessee legislature where Brian Kelsey is championing a way to get the right to work legislation into the state constitution. But this week he had to disclose that he has a conflict of interest. We've talked about this before, Mike. I'll go to you on this one. Do you think that it was passed in a committee the other day? Do you think that the right to work law is going to become part of the state constitution?
I have to be careful with this because I was born and raised in a union family. And anyone who proposes right-to-work clause, at least according to my father when I was growing up years ago, has horns growing out of their head. Do not support that at all. So I have really strong feelings about that. However, right to work is in existence in many states across the country. This state, of course, you can be terminated in Tennessee for any and all reasons. Yeah, I mean, he did come out finally and say, I got a conflict here.
Right.
Finally, after it came to the attention of everybody through the media, that you got a conflict here. So he came out and said it. Will it pass? Again, looking at this legislature? Yeah, I think so.
Let's very briefly go down to Mississippi. We have just about a minute left. There has been a real terrible story down there with deaths at the state prisons, especially at Parchman. Governor Tate Reeves finally came out the other day and said that they're going to fix it. What do you make of that one, Sam?
Again, reading the Clarion Ledger, another Gannett paper. I'm just stumping for Gannett papers here.
I see. Well, they're doing a good job covering
it. It seems that there need to be massive changes made at that prison. I mean, I was just reading an article saying that they're now using software to block contraband cell phones that gang members have been using. It seems that, there may be guards who are affiliated with gangs, that it's really a movie down there, and the push alerts from news stations keep coming about deaths down there. It's a serious situation for a new governor.
Yeah, it really is. But, Republicans have been in charge of the state house for the last 15, 16 years, and they didn't do anything about it. We're going to have to leave it there. We'll take another break, and then we'll have some final thoughts in just a moment on Local 24 this week.
Some say e-cigarettes aren't dangerous.
But science shows nicotine can harm teens' developing brains.
No matter how they're exposed.
Let's do an experiment to find out.
Here's a teen who won't be using e-cigarettes.
Now we need one willing to risk their brain development.
Anyone care to volunteer your kid?
Anyone?
Your kids are not an experiment. Protect them from e-cigarettes.
The thought of my sons growing up without me inspired me to quit smoking.
I talked to my doctors, and then I threw away all my cigarettes, ashtrays, and lighters.
I started exercising instead of smoking.
Letting my friends online know I was quitting kept me on track.
Staying away from alcohol when I was first quitting was key.
I kept on trying, learned something each time.
Do whatever it takes.
No matter how many times it takes.
We did it. You can too.
For free help, visit cdc.gov/tips.
Ask yourself what you will miss more, your children or cigarettes. For as long as I can remember, my mother smoked. She died from lung cancer when I was 16. I could not take the chance of continuing smoking and not being here for my daughter. I know how much I needed my mom still, and I didn't realize it until I had lost her.
You can quit. For free help, visit cdc.gov/tips.
Women can inspire women across the United States
to embrace each other, lift each other up,
and hold each other accountable when it comes to heart health.
That's why we're here inviting you on Friday, February 7th to stand with us
for National Wear Red Day
as we work to change the course of history
and save the lives of our mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends. We got this.
We got this.
We got this.
We got this. We got this.
Go Red.
Go Red. Go Red.
Go Red.
Go Red for women.
To reach us is rransom@localmemphis.com. I want to thank Mike Matthews, Sam Haldeman, and also the County Mayor Lee Harris for coming today. And thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.